Right. Welcome, everyone, to the Living Consciously television show, coming to you live from our Denver, Colorado Internet television studio. Also, we are live on YouTube Live, as well as Google Plus Hangouts, and streaming on consciousevolutionmedia.com. I am your host and moderator, Coach Steve Toad, also the founder of Conscious Evolution Media and Living Consciously TV. And our theme today actually is one of my favorite subjects. We've been talking about this a lot lately, which has to do with what are we going to learn today, or what are we going to learn tomorrow about how to use more than 10% of the capacity of our brain consciously. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce our guest this evening, Glynda-Lee Hoffman. And she's an author and many other things, but she's more importantly, I believe, has some expertise regarding how the brain works. Welcome to the show, Glynda-Lee.
Hi, Steve. Thanks for inviting me.
Hi. Yeah, the last show that you and I did is getting all kinds of views on YouTube, so people must be interested in, and somebody interested and engaged, I guess. But unfortunately, most of the people are still drawn more to what I say, the 3 S's. You know what the 3 S's are?
No. Sensation?
No. Sex, stupidity,
yeah,
and sports.
You're right.
That's what people are still watching, and the reason I'm mentioning that, not because I'm judging people, because I'm not there doing whatever they're doing, and everything is completely in order 100% of the time. I'm just saying because that has a lot to do with the reptilian brain, which you know tons about. So tell our viewers and us a little bit more about the reptilian brain.
Well, we all have one, and it's very active. And the reptilian brain is the center of our willpower and our sex drive and our sense of territory and our sense of power. So when you say sports, sex,
and stupidity.
One amazing characteristic of the reptilian brain is that it cannot learn.
like if you check out YouTube and you look at all the 5-minute or 2-minute videos that are going viral, most of them have to do with either stupidity or something sexual.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Most of us in modern cultures are stuck on the lower 3 cortexes in the brain and do not access the most important cortex, which is frontal lobe, sitting right behind the forehead, which is the only human cortex in the brain. And that is evident by the state of world affairs.
Wow, you can say that again.
And interestingly, we all came here to develop our frontal lobe, but the cultural stories that have been told to us diminish our capacity to access the frontal lobe and even encourage us to keep it sleeping by distracting us with sex, stupidity, and sports.
and what's interesting to me is that for some reason I feel that this is becoming, maybe not becoming, but it is appearing to be, and I don't know if I'm alone in this, so just tell me, but it's appearing to be getting amplified more and more. Is that accurate?
It's amplified because we're more connected. That's certainly the truth. And so we reflect to each other our state of consciousness, consciously or unconsciously. To me, this pattern of empowering the 3 older cortexes and disempowering the frontal lobe is basically it's a manifestation of patriarchal culture, because patriarchal culture encourages the hierarchical social structures that the reptilian cortex is absolutely addicted to. It encourages the violence that the reptilian culture is prone to through its greedy need for power. And most of us simply have no clue. We're walking around in human bodies thinking that we are behaving as human beings, when actually we're really behaving like reptiles, mammals, and hominids. I mean, you can see the projection of our behaviors. It's really the animal farm. Most of us do not behave humanly, because if we were, our behavior would be conscious, kind, planning for the real future, accessing parts of our brain that we term magical, like clairvoyance and energy medicine. And certainly there is a group of people who are accessing the frontal lobe, and they are on the front lines of the consciousness movement, but the vast majority are still stuck in those older three cortexes, which, as I said before, is the story of Cinderella. She's enslaved in her own house by her stepfamily, and neurally, that's the state that we all exist in. We are enslaved in our house of consciousness by our older three cortexes, and we haven't awakened the sleeping beauty that is our frontal lobe.
That's very, very,
so
very
Glynda,
interesting.
if you look at,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, you've got that picture of the brain behind you, or you've got that actually model of the brain behind you. When you're looking at that, the reptilian section of the brain, can you point to that so that the people?
The reptilian section of the brain is known as the brain stem. It's this part of the brain down here. It sits just on top of the spinal cord. You can Google reptilian brain, and an image will come up that shows that this lower portion of the brain is all that developed in reptiles. Reptiles have no play behavior. That's why this is very interesting. Most religions are very reptilian, and you can tell by the seriousness of their attitudes. For instance,
the significance, incredible amount of significance.
Yeah. Many religions don't allow joyous behavior, like dancing and singing or going to parties. That's very reptilian, because the reptilian cortex has no play behavior at all, and those are all play behaviors. Play behaviors don't manifest until you get to the mammalian brain, which is the next one up. It's in the center of the brain. I'm going to take my brain apart here.
Great.
To show you. This is the interior of the brain. Yeah. And this section here is the mammalian. It's the ancient mammalian brain that first developed in the little mouse-like creatures that coexisted with the last epoch of the dinosaurs. They were nocturnal, and they only came out of their burrows at night because the dinosaurs ruled the earth by day because they needed the sunlight. But these furry little mammals developed, and then once the dinosaurs were killed off, these mammals created all the following species that eventually became us. But this part of the brain is wired for auditory reception, because the mammals who lived at night depended on their auditory senses to survive and raise their young, whereas the reptilian cortex is dependent on taste and smell, because those are the only senses that not that it didn't have ears, but these are the senses it used to survive. So this part of the brain we call, I used to, when I was first learning about the brain, I used to call this the soap opera brain.
No wonder that the fast food industry is so successful.
Oh yeah.
Because it's all about taste.
Yep, and smell.
And smell.
And all the comfort foods, and of course that goes back to the mammalian mother-infant bonding process, which is always about comfort and protection. So this is the part of the brain that developed roughly starting 60 million years ago, I think. I get these, when I get up into these millions of numbers, I tend to forget exactly which one started where. And then the neocortex, of course, this is the neocortex, this walnut kind of shaped, convoluted area of the brain. And most scientists, most people, and including most scientists, do not distinguish between the neocortical portion of this area and the frontal lobe, which is this area here, which goes along right, it's right behind the forehead. But what I learned from Genesis and the Kabbalah is that there's an enormous distinction between these two parts of the brain, even though they look the same. All our visual input from our visual cortex is processed in the neocortex in the back of the brain, and it's all directed outward to the outer world. Whereas the frontal lobe processes visual information too, but only interior visual information, which is why all good athletes, super athletes, and all good business people and all good performers actually practice their technique by rehearsing it in their mind. Have you read about that?
Yeah, I actually taught at a TAFE college here, and got the students, because it was very new when I was teaching at that time, and so I got the students and separated them into 3 groups and had one group of students just visualize it, just practice it over and over and over and over again, and they didn't actually go and play. They just had to practice, and I wanted to see what would happen from that. And another group had to go and play, and another group did nothing. And when we ran the little tournament at the end, the group that have played every day and practiced physically versus the group that visualized and could see themselves shooting for the goal and etc., there was only a 2-point difference in the whole tournament.
Yeah. And that's the power of the frontal lobe. The brain doesn't know whether it's real input or imagined input. The brain responds the same to the signals because you're feeding it those signals. And it just exactly what you said. And that by the way, that experiment has been reproduced on in many different scenarios with the same result, with a similar result.
Yeah, because then from that experiment, I then took that into my own life, and I imagined that I could go to China and help people in an earthquake zone, and I couldn't see how I couldn't do it. I just imagined it over and over again. I could see it, but I don't speak a word of Chinese. It was really interesting, and it all happened. It all manifested. It all happened. My book went through. 10 million people were displaced, and I was going through the army, everything. I should never have been able to physically do any of that, but by practicing it and believing it, and then working with the people who are with me to say, just believe it, just have that faith that we're going to do this. The idea came to us. It's just to continually keep that in your mind that it's going to manifest, and it did. And so I just live by that now. It's just so profound.
And of course, that is the basis of the book, The Secret, which is whatever you focus on.
Yeah.
Right. Whatever you focus on, whatever you attend to, whatever you pay attention to, that's what your brain will produce.
And that's negative or positive. I think that has to be very clear that, if you focus on, dying, then you will. Or if you focus on that's going to be a bad event, then it will be. It's whatever you focus on, literally. Yeah.
Expands. Right. Whatever we focus on expands.
Yes. Yeah. And that literally is the power of the frontal lobe, because the frontal lobe is the only portion of the brain that has intention. The role of intention in awareness is located in the frontal lobe. And when you are practicing this over and over, not only are you planning for the future, which is another role of the frontal lobe, but you are engaging intention. And intention is so powerful it can't be measured. Just like you said, you shouldn't have been able to go to China to accomplish that task. And there are so many examples of people overcoming enormous obstacles by doing exactly what you did, by focusing on a goal in the future that was very important to them, and they achieved it, no matter what the obstacles were in front of them.
And is it also true, Glynda-Lee, that when we focus on something in the future that what we want to achieve or become, we have the capacity to be able to be it actually right now, because we have our magical way of feeling how we're going to feel like and what it's going to look like when we get to that goal that we want. So we can actually create ourselves in a way that we already have it and achieved it. Is that accurate?
It is accurate, and even more importantly, whether it actually manifests now or next week or next month is not as important as holding true to that goal, because the brain needs the repetition of the goal. It needs to be reminded, because those other three cortexes are so strong. Their neurochemistry is much stronger than the neurochemistry of the frontal lobe. I call the frontal lobe the baby in the brain because it's the youngest member of the neural family. And because it's the youngest, it can be overpowered more easily by those older cortexes. And this has been, I say, proven scientifically, because scientists have actually measured the number of neural networks that travel up from the older parts of the brain, these parts here, to the frontal lobe. The number of those neural networks far exceeds the number of neural networks that travel from the frontal lobe back to those other cortexes, changing the feedback loop. So when we focus on the goals we want to attain, and we continue to focus that, we are actually growing neural networks from the frontal lobe back to those old cortexes that are saying, no, you can't do that. Oh, how silly. That'll never happen. And didn't that happen while you were focusing on that, Linda? I mean, didn't you hear little voices?
Absolutely. We call it in NLP, we call it self-sabotage, that you know, something comes up and then an old habit, you know, from the reptilian brain, I would imagine, the old habit goes, you can't do that, how stupid, you know, you've tried it before and it didn't work, and or your parents.
Yeah, exactly. And the Buddhists refer to that as the monkey brain, interestingly, the mammalian monkey brain. But it refers to all this chatter from these lower cortexes that have been programmed into survival consciousness, which is fight or flight, and they are constantly chattering. So it's very important to maintain our focus on the frontal lobe so it can build up its neurochemistry of hope and faith in this future goal. It's like building a muscle. So the point is to ignore the monkey mind, the chatter, and just keep doing it. Even
hey, Steve, what do you say?
What do I say? Yeah.
Next.
Well, yeah. I actually, you know, whatever. I mean, I'm not patting myself on the back, but somehow I arrived to this place where I can manage that chatter, and I can actually quiet it down and not be part of who I'm being with what I'm doing in the present moment. Like right now, we're on a show, and I don't have all this stuff going on in my head trying to tell me what I should say or what I shouldn't say. I'm just being myself, and things actually come to me. I'm open to whatever needs to occur, whatever needs to unfold, and things just actually flow. So.
Yes, and Steve, go ahead and pat yourself on the back and say good job, because that is another message that the frontal lobe needs. In fact, one of the techniques in my free ebook, 7 Techniques to Cultivate Your Genius, well, actually I haven't added this one yet, but we should tell ourselves good job no matter what task we accomplish during the day, because it is a method of quieting the chatter from those older cortexes, which want to constantly criticize us. So we want to override that with good job. Yeah. It's not egotistical.
But that chatter, doesn't that chatter fade? Because I've noticed as soon as I started to really work with the frontal lobe and my ability to see that I could make whatever that happened in China, so many more things have happened since then, because I now don't have to give it any more energy. I don't have to say, oh, there's all these reasons why I can't do it. I don't give that any energy anymore. I just focus on, in fact, I'm writing a book now called Make It Happen, because you simply can, by giving all your energy towards what you want to do rather than half your energy towards the chatter. And, you know, life is calmer, even when there's controversy. So I'm just about finishing this book. I'm literally half a chapter away, and my editor says, sorry, I can't finish editing your book. I've been called to Cambodia. And I'm thinking, normally I would have gone, oh, a few words that I can't repeat here. And I haven't done that. I've literally gone out to friends and said, does anyone know an editor around? Knowing that the universe is just going to send me. And literally 2 minutes before the show, a lady rang up and said, you know what, while I can't do the editing this week because it's school holidays here in Australia, I can do it from next week. And my publisher said, that's okay, I can give you an extra week. And I'm going, you know what, so calmly everything falls into place without the chatter.
That's a perfect example. Thank you so much for that, because you are so right. If we focus on the task we want to accomplish, and the more we focus on that, and the more energy we give to that, and the more positive energy we give to ourselves, the quieter the older cortexes become, and the more neural pathways we build from the frontal lobe back to them and actually transform them. And that's what we came to do. That's our purpose on Earth. Our purpose on Earth is to build the muscle of the frontal lobe so strong that it grows its neural networks back to those older cortexes and brings them into the agenda of the frontal lobe. And you explained a very good example of how that happens. First of all, you focused on the editing. You didn't listen to your mammalian brain go, oh no, we're going to freak out now because we don't have an editor. You didn't listen to that. You made a new neural network to the mammalian that said, quiet down, this is all handled. I'm going to get an editor. We don't have to freak out. In the old days, like I said, I used to call it the soap opera brain, because of course in soap operas everyone is reacting to crises. So instead of, you didn't go into crisis, you just maintained your focus, and you grew a neural net. You were actually growing neural networks as you were doing that, and they were stretching back into those older parts of the brain, and they were saying, calm down, we have a new agenda here, we're not going to exclude you because we need your special abilities, because each of these cortexes has special talents that the frontal lobe needs in order for us to be completely human. So we can't cut them off. We simply have to rearrange their patterns so that they're not in charge, we're in charge, and then we get to use their special talents.
Wow, that's amazing stuff. So I need some help understanding something. And what I need help with is that how come that there has been an incredible amount of improvement and evolution, especially with technology, in our world. So look at all that happened with our ability to go to the moon, our ability to explore space, our ability to build these buildings. Like when I look at New York, I'm going like, oh my God, how did we do that? And then we created the airplanes and the helicopters, and with technology, the computers and the smartphones, and you name it. I mean, we created all this stuff. Incredible amount of growth and evolution in a very short period of time.
Yes.
In comparison to our history of humanity.
Our social evolution.
yes, but I feel that in a way, a lot of the people, like a very large portion of humanity, are operating in terms of their brain back in the old ages, like 1,000 or 2,000 years ago. And
Socially, yes.
and all that has changed is they just wear different clothes and they have a smartphone in their hand.
And have better toys.
Yeah. But nothing. So what's up? What's up with that?
Linda, do you want to address that, or?
Well, I think, you know, it's interesting because I was walking to the beach as I do every morning this morning, and I always say hello to everybody, you know, like, good morning, you know, see if I can cheer somebody's day up. And anyway, you don't get many answers these days because the headphones are in and they're on their smartphones, etc., as they walk. And so it's like, yeah, they've got smartphones, but that little part of the brain that you were telling us about with the auditory, for some reason they're getting that from their smartphone, but we're not. We've become social dropouts in a way.
Yeah.
Because I looked at it, even down at the beach, you know, here's this most beautiful sunrise that I just love every morning. I get my energy from, but there's people on their phones. They're not conversing with each other. There's no admiring of what's happening with the nature. Why did they even bother to go? I don't know, but it's just amazing. So they're into this technology, and that's what's making their day. You know, it's quite profound.
Yeah, so there's this enormous chasm between our social evolution and our technological evolution. Mm-hmm. And my perception of why that occurred goes back to the role of patriarchy. The reason we refer to ourselves as mankind or man, the reason God is a male, is because when those concepts were being birthed, it was men who birthed them. And men were in charge of all education, all social institutions, up until really quite recently. And it just so happens that the part of the brain that deals with technological innovation is also generally masculine, whereas the part of the brain that deals with social interaction and social evolution is generally feminine. And because of the way patriarchy has structured social institutions, it has diminished and repressed the feminine aspects of the brain to the point that we are we're socially ignorant of our own capacity as human beings to come together and change our world the way we want to.
Are we in essence stuck in terms of being able to proceed through evolution as humanity? Are we stuck?
I wouldn't say we're stuck because I've seen cycles in our social evolution and in our psychological evolution. We are in a certain place, like I would say, that's very similar to before what historians call the Renaissance. There's a lot of conflict. There's let me explain it a different way. There's a historian, I can't think of his name right now, but my favorite quote of his is, "From farming to science, the conflict has always been between innovators and bureaucrats." And what he's saying in a nutshell there is exactly what I was explaining about the brain. From the earliest parts of civilization, there's always been this conflict between the innovation of the frontal lobe and the bureaucracy, which is more well developed in the older three cortexes. And they've constantly been going back and forth as we generally evolve slowly to be more authentically human. So while we have all this technology, the cell phones and the weapons of mass destruction, and all the internet, and all of us, the majority of us being distracted by all of that, there is a core group, like there always has been, of people like you and I who are forging ahead with our social evolution while using the tools of the technological evolution.
You know, Glynda, this is amazing. I've got a really good example that the viewers might like to listen to, because it's just literally happened. So I've created some programs that I believe would be brilliant to go into schools to show kids how they can understand the way their brain works and their mind works, and be or do whatever they have. And it's taken me a year to get to the bureaucrats of the education department. It's very, very interesting. And so I call a friend who's also been working on a program. In the meantime, you know, I've cured myself of a disease that you're not supposed to cure yourself from. I've got 26 kids that don't take Ritalin anymore. I've got kids with ADHD that don't have it anymore. And I've got all this anecdotal evidence of kids that I can change their eye pattern so they're no longer deemed to be stupid, because they might have had a right-handedness and they've copied mum and dad's left-handedness. I got all this anecdotal evidence, and I've got it all with me, which was really dumb, and took it to the Minister of Education. And they didn't even open the front cover. They just kept saying that anecdotal, in other words, us creative people that have gone and done all that work and shown, like, you know, that you can actually do this. You don't need a scientific background. Once somebody has encompassed this and it works, it might be good to have a look at some of the anecdotal evidence. For example, especially if I can cure myself of a major disease, when am I going to do the research? I don't have time for that. I'm busy creating the next thing.
Well, you already done the research.
Yeah, in my body, but see, that's anecdotal to them. So again, you know, people like me now are getting shots like cancer. They're getting chemo, and they're dying. It's just crazy. And I continue to live. But the kids one is fascinating, because they said, come back with university-based research on the fact that your programs work. So now I've put it out there, and in fact, I came away frustrated. I really did, because I went, wow, all these years that I've worked with kids and had some great, really good results, and there's kids and parents out there that can show that it's not enough, because they're scared about taking it into the schools and it may not work. Well, what about if it does? They still want a university-based. We've now had to connect with some universities to get someone to see if they'll come and work with us. And
well, good luck with that. I certainly hope that you make some headway. But I too have experienced the resistance of the bureaucracy, and it is very strong. Again, the lower three cortexes are very good at bullying the brain. And that's basically what bureaucracy does. It bullies, it's the bully in institutions that wants only to maintain its power structure rather than leap into the innovation. Now, I don't know what, well, I do know. I actually do know what breaks that. The Kabbalah taught me that there is an energy in the universe that's a disruptive energy. It's the most powerful energy in the universe, and it does disrupt. And we see it in the negative light of disruption through riots, through terrorism, through war, through bullying on the playground. That's the negative aspect of it. But the positive aspect is the image of the phoenix emerging from the ashes. When something is destroyed, something new will always take its place.
Yep.
That is the cycle of life. So at some point, the bureaucratic mechanism becomes too unwieldy, and a disruption just at the right time and the right amount of energy.
It has to break down. It has to break down completely.
Right. And so...
And then why this is good news? is because we're having all these breakdowns, and actually, the bigger the breakdown, the bigger the breakthrough.
Yes, and what I have learned to witness as the breakdown of certain institutions in society is that what's really breaking down is that old hierarchical, patriarchal structure. And you can see that very clearly with the internet, because the internet is a flat field. Anyone with a computer and internet access can find any kind of information they want. So even though you, Linda, are struggling against this bureaucracy, someone else is actually looking for you. And the internet makes it possible for them to find you.
Yeah. And yes, it's interesting because the teachers, I'm attracting a lot of teachers into my courses because they want more tools to be able to help the children in the classroom. So that's been amazing. So, you know, there's always a way. And also I'm involved in a remote Aboriginal schools project coming up. And we're thinking that maybe someone could actually research some of the outcomes from that program that we're going to be doing, and that could help us. Well, it could help a lot of people.
Sure.
So let me share something that could actually completely transform potentially what you're doing, Linda, because and I'm going to use my own example in a second here, is that there's one thing that the school system doesn't understand, nor do they know, which is, and this is going to be really funny, and they don't know how to make sure that people that are in their schools are actually learning. They don't know how to do that. They think they do, but they don't. So let me give you an example. So the example of my own, and recently I had to take a real estate related test, and it was a really tough test. And if I was going to, I needed to study, obviously, before, and this is no different than what kids have to do. So it was like 2,000 pages of text. There's two different tests I had to take. One was 1,500 pages, the other was 500 pages. And I'm going like this. I mean, you know me. I'm going like this. Okay, so first of all, I'm not going to print it because that's going to require 2,000 pieces of paper, a lot of ink. And once I print it, I'm probably not going to read it because I hate reading. It takes too long. It's not my way of learning. Now, what do schools do? You know, the schools, they make kids buy the books, do all this stuff. And the reason I'm bringing this up, because it just dawned on me, okay, so I am not the type of person that likes to read. I am the type of person that loves to watch videos, like that's what I do for a living, watch videos, listen, I'm auditory, I'm visual. And I said, well, could I on the internet real quickly find some tools that are video-based that will take me through these 2,000 pages in a very short period of time? And yes, I did find it right away because I knew what I was looking for. And there were two pieces of training courses that I bought, and both of them were video-based. Now, why is that important? It's important because I was having fun while I was learning. Do you get it?
And actually, that is the essence of learning. We call it the joy of learning. And when anyone learns anything, it always is joyful. We have a part in our brain, and I actually don't even know where this is, but it includes the frontal lobe, and it also includes the mammalian. But it actually releases that joyful chemical that when we do learn something, because it rewards us for learning, because our brain is designed to learn. So it does reward us. And Steve, your statement that you found a video and that you like to watch videos to learn is also very important, because when you watch a video, you're utilizing not only your auditory but your visual, and when you use both of those together rather than reading, you can learn vast amounts of information much quicker than just reading. Yes.
And that's what I was after. And then the distinguishing thing was for me is, oh my God, I would have run through 2,000 pages of stuff that I would have resisted every moment of the time. I would have no fun. I would be miserable. I would not, most of it I probably wouldn't even learn because I just wasn't interested. I would be bored with it. And why do all that when when there is a much faster, much quicker, much more enjoyable, much more pleasant way of doing it. So you tell that to all these teachers and all these schools, because they, in my humble opinion, don't get it, that every kid is different. And there's going to be some kids that will love to read, but that's not going to be the majority.
No, I totally agree with you. Interestingly, the part of the brain that deals with written language is another masculine part of the brain, and this is all part of the patriarchal package. Again, and I'm not trying to blame men. I'm not trying to male bash here, but I mean, think about it. The printing press that was developed by Gutenberg was used to print a patriarchal Bible in which God is male. And the way that the brain processes linear written word is very limiting compared to the way the brain processes video, which is auditory and visual, because like the old saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words. The reason that's true is because the brain can absorb much more information from a picture than it can from a string of linear written words. So I'm not trying to be bashing men when I say this patriarchal business. What I'm trying to say is that patriarchal social structures do not help us evolve. They keep us static.
So Glynda, that's just brought out an amazing point. When I read Joe Dispenza's book, Evolve Your Brain, he also talks about the frontal lobe. And he says that when we're born, we're just so pure. And then we're told. Now, being told is a masculine thing to do. So when I'm teaching, I'm in my masculine mood. But when I'm coaching, I'm very feminine. I'm taking in information. So the feminine part of us is receiving, and I really had to learn to do that. Like a lot of people will go, oh, you know, that's a nice shirt. Oh, it was just a cheapie, you know, and we brush off so much of what is given to us as a compliment, for example, which is a lovely feminine thing to do. And Joe Dispenza talks about in the frontal lobe, as we're developing, we're told so often about what not to do. Don't do that, don't do that, don't touch that, don't do this, don't do that. And all these orders, and it's like this masculinity from mum and dad of what not to do until we get to a point where we're too scared to ask because we're going to be told not to do it.
Yeah,
that is the quietening down.
Yes, that is all part of the patriarchal structure, because it is the joining together of the neocortical masculine energy of knowledge with the reptilian masculine energy of power, saying, don't do that. The information is no, because that helps those 3 older cortexes stay in control and continue these cultural patterns that do not serve us as human beings, but do serve the bureaucracy, which continues to feed them.
So I'm very interested in this next thing that I wanted to touch on, which is what is part of my evolution, is how do we become superhumans?
We become superhumans by activating the frontal lobe, by constantly giving ourselves positive messages. What we want to do is constantly reprogram all of our old negative conditioning that we grew up with, because we all grew up in these controlling, linear, patriarchal cultures. That's what modern civilization is. And we all got these same messages. And basically the message is, don't like yourself. Don't love yourself. Become one of us. Learn to take orders. That's very militaristic. And do what you're told. So
and work hard.
Yeah, and work hard and don't enjoy yourself. So all of us who are striving, all of us who are striving.
Oh, whoops! I got that one wrong.
Well, the point is, if you're working hard and you enjoy it, then that's a different thing. That's more like passion. As long as you're enjoying it, as long as you're feeding this passion. when it becomes so stressful that you get sick or that you have no interest anymore, then you're being counterproductive. So each of us has to learn this balance. It's an enormous struggle to fight against this conditioning that all of us have been subjected to, but there's no other way out. So in order to become superhumans, we must feed the frontal lobe. We must recognize that we are not who we've been told by the patriarchal structures that we are. We are not merely human beings. We are also angelic energy beings, and it's that energy that holds our essence, and we need to be focusing on going into the future so that we can embody those joyful, intelligent, meaningful passions and experiences that we long for.
And do we know what does superhuman look like? Can you help us describe it or
in my perception of it, the superhumans look like a society of heaven on earth. We are kind to each other. We nurture each other. We don't tell lies. We only tell the truth. We search within ourselves for all of our own toxic thoughts, feelings, patterns, and we learn how to neutralize those so that we don't pass them on to our children, especially. We foster relationships that feed us rather than dominate us. And we do this as much as we can, possibly, and hope that this energy goes out. And brick by brick, person by person, this is the only way the world will change. It only changes one person at a time unless we reach a critical mass of some kind. And that could happen if we have a big enough disruption. I don't know what that will look like, but I do know that if we actually embody our true human essence, we will create social institutions that nurture us rather than dominate us, which is what we live with now.
Yeah. It's wonderful, and I think also superhuman in that, to me, looks like somebody that's almost, it's a masculine term, or it's to me, a superhuman, from all your descriptions and what I have in my mind, is it's a calming thing. You're actually a lot calmer within yourself.
Well, yes, because
you have
you're
more
confidence. You're more focused. And focus always brings calming. But also, I think, Steve, what you're referring to, as superhumans, we will also develop our extrasensory perceptions, our intuitive.
For example, let me just describe that from my point of view. So the way, and I agree with everything that both of you said, and I want to add to it. Like, for example, we were, I was having some challenges with bringing two cast members onto the show, and one of them was having technical problems, and because he couldn't hear me, and and I couldn't hear him, we weren't able to communicate the traditional way or the old way. But for example, if I could use telepathy, and I could actually tell him without actually talking to him, but through space and time, I could actually tell him in his mind what he needs to do and how he needs to fix the problem. And same thing with the other cast member that I wasn't able to communicate with. I could telepathically tell her that the show is starting and she needs to come on and she needs to do whatever she needs to do, to get onto the show. Does that make sense?
Yes, and in fact, Linda, isn't it true that the old legends of the Aborigines say that they communicated that way, and that perhaps some of them still do?
Yeah, no, absolutely, and they have more respect for their elders than we do.
Well, perhaps their elders are actually wise.
Yeah, that's right. They believe in wisdom, the wisdom of the elders. And yes, I'm really looking forward. It's a brand new project put out by the federal government here to do with remote villages. And I've been selected to not only train but to write some of the curriculum. So it's been a very, very busy year, and isn't it interesting that while I wanted to finish my book, I'm thinking, how can I do all the things that are coming to me right now? And they just happened to move that program a month or so because some of the schools in the remote areas weren't ready, and I said, of course they did. So now I have a chance to finish my book and start my trainers training, and then I'll be in the remote parts of Australia working, maybe even up as far as Arnhem Land and Darwin and all over those places where they don't even speak English, some of them. They've got their own tongue. So yes, I love learning from all different groups of people, and the Aboriginals are one of them.
Well, thank you so much for doing that work. It sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So,
well, in a way, I'm already doing it in remote areas of wheat fields and sheep areas of South Australia and that. And some of the teachers from there are coming to my programs. So this is just an extension of that. But this is a government-led initiative to see if we can get more of our little kids in those areas to school, which is great.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, Glynda-Lee, could you maybe share some ideas and some concepts with our viewers that people could be doing if they're interested in developing their frontal brain starting today? You know, simple stuff that they could do to go through the evolution that we're talking about and perhaps becoming superhuman.
In fact, I'll do a little plug here. If you visit my website, www.thegenesiscode.com, I have a free ebook titled 7 Techniques to Cultivate Your Genius. And that's just my way of saying we have all this potential that we can learn how to use to make ourselves and our life more enjoyable and more knowledgeable. So one of the techniques, it's a very powerful technique, is called the I Am Pure meditation. You simply sit with your eyes closed and you say to yourself, I am pure love, I am pure light, I am pure energy. And after the word pure, you use only words that cannot be defined in any physical dimension. So you can't say I am a body or I am a human. You have to use energetic words, and you have to say I am, because this is a shortcut that the brain needs to realize that not only do we have a material being, but we have an energetic being. And we need to identify with that energetic being in order to activate it. So the shortcut to all that potential and power is to say, I am that. And in fact, it's right there in the Bible when Moses talks to the burning bush. The term, even in the Bible, is I am that I am. It's that meditation right there, because the I am is indefinable as a corporeal entity. So I just opened up one day and this meditation came to me. Another simple thing is, throughout your day, no matter what you do, if you accomplish anything, from getting dressed to brushing your teeth to getting your breakfast to getting in the car, driving to work, whatever it is you accomplish, you tell yourself, good job, good job. You would be amazed how good that will make you feel within 3 days, because it will stop all the chatter of the old brain saying, oh, that's a crappy job. It doesn't matter even if you did the job well, just that you completed it. That's all that matters. So any action that you actually complete during the day, say good job and pat yourself on the back, just like I told you, Steve. So for more, and see, these are very simple exercises. Anyone can do these exercises. But the way
Glynda, when you talk about that, it actually, when I'm teaching NLP, the conscious mind, or the what we call the 4% of consciousness at the top, is basically that's what I want. But the I am is in the 96% of the subconscious. The thing that runs your body, the spiritual part of us, is the I am. It's the way we feel about us. So by saying I am, we're actually connecting to the part that is the most beautiful part of our body, that beats our heart, that runs our blood. And so that's why it's so calming and so beautiful, and allows your self-esteem to be totally different, because now you're saying to yourself what is absolutely possible that you are, that you am those things.
You're accessing an enormous amount of potential energy to focus and guide in the direction that you want to. And my 7 techniques, I have 5 more techniques that are just as simple as that, that will, if practiced daily, transform you.
Wow, absolutely.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Absolutely fantastic.
What a pleasure.
Absolutely fantastic, outrageous, and it is definitely my pleasure to have Glynda-Lee Hoffman on our network, and especially on
well, thank you, Steve.
TV. And you've been on for, I don't even know how, I stopped counting after 2.
Well, this is only the 3rd time.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
So
no, I think it's 4th.
Well, I haven't found the 3rd, so I need to go look for that 3rd
yeah,
video.
you were on Mind, Body, and Soul twice, and you were on Nina's show once, and then this one.
Oh,
so
okay.
That's 4.
So I lost one somewhere in the Ethernet.
Yeah,
I need to find it.
You lost one. You lost one somewhere. It's on YouTube. All you have to do is just look for it on YouTube.
I'll do that. Thank you.
Awesome.
And Linda,
so,
it was lovely speaking with you. I love hearing about your projects.
Thank you. I was thinking in this book that I'm finishing, I'd like to put a reference in there for people to be able to say, you know what, all I'm doing in my book is showing people what you're describing that you do in the brain. And it might be a great example for people to see that, you know, get onto that frontal lobe and give yourself permission to be creative and do whatever you want to do. Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful.
And I'm really serious, since we're talking about you know, our young people, and that's, you know, the future of humanity. Is that we really need to crack this this issue about how do we help them so that they learn, because the current system ain't doing it.
Yeah. No.
So maybe.
I totally agree with you, Steve. The curriculum in school that we are teaching is 2,500 years old. We are basically teaching the same subjects that the ancient Greeks taught to their students. We haven't really innovated that much, and we're even using the same methods. I mean, when I actually thought about that and that dawned on me, I was like, oh my, this is static. There's a man named Sugata Mitra in India who is doing some remarkable disruptive techniques in education. If you want to find out about those, he was the inspiration behind the movie Slumdog Millionaire. And what he has done is put computers into mud huts and mud walls in isolated villages in India, and he's put a camera behind the computer to record the children that come and play with the computer, teach themselves how to use it, then teach themselves languages, teach themselves how to read. He has developed this whole theory that children, if given the tools, can actually teach themselves anything they want to learn. And the more children that use together one computer, the more they all learn. He's discovered that there's this group learning process that goes on. Even though one student is typing and another one's using the mouse, the whole group is learning what those two are doing, because they're all inputting to those students who are actually operating the computer. He's a brilliant man with some fabulous work going on, and I'm a big fan of his.
Wow, fantastic. All right, Dan, so thank you so much. It's been absolutely fantastic. I really enjoyed it very much. I hope all of our viewers have enjoyed it as well. And I forgot to introduce Linda at the beginning of the show, because I was like, okay, we don't have 2 of our cast members on.
Lucky I feel good about myself.
And but you didn't react. You didn't stop the show and say like, how come you didn't introduce me? So I'm gonna introduce you now and say, you know, we had Linda Dyer on, you know, who's on our shows many times, very often, and she's from Australia, where the kangaroos, you know, roam, and they just never stop running and kicking people in the butt. There's this. I saw this movie. There's a movie that's being released right now where the kangaroo is actually doing that. Those things are huge. How tall are those things?
Yeah, they are. They are. If you come across a big red, like I did on my trip around Australia, and no doubt I'll see some more when I go up there. They are, when they go past you, they're bigger than you, and you just want to get out of the way.
Like
and
6
don't
feet
grab
or
their
more
tail.
than 6 feet? Are they more than 6 feet?
Well, I'm 5'2" in the old, so they were bigger than me. I'd say when the head's up, absolutely. That's the big red, though. That's not. A lot of kangaroos are smaller than that. One of the saddest things I just saw on my last country trip was a lot of dead ones because they're jumping the fences and coming across on the freeways. Ooh. And that's really sad. That's something that hurts me when I drive.
Yeah, I bet. And those are no small bodies. So, all right. Well, my heart goes out to those kangaroos. I love all animals. Doesn't matter what animal it is. So fantastic. Thank you all. I've enjoyed it very much. And we'll see you always, next time on Living Consciously TV, always on Tuesdays now at our new time, which is at 7 p.m. Mountain Time, 9 p.m. Eastern, and 6 p.m. Pacific, which our network is kind of going through a transformation itself, which is we showing all of our live shows at the same time. What a concept. How come I didn't think of this before? So people don't have to think when is this network on. So it's on every day at the same time, same place. So there you go. So if you were touched, moved, and inspired by anything that Glynda-Lee said, or Linda said, or I said, please come to our website at consciousmedia.com and engage with us and grow with us. Grow with us with our frontal lobe, our third eye.
Let's do it. Let's create the frontal lobe society.
Absolutely. Yep. It's a revolution. Thank you. See you guys next time.
Bye-bye.
Wonderful. Great show. Bye.